What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Unhinged Talk. As usual, I'm your host, Patrick Hennessy, joined tonight by the man, Jay Lonzo. How are we doing, Jalen?
I'm feeling good. Just good.
Decent. Solid.
Decent.
But listen, I do want to talk about today just a hypothetical trade scenario. Trevor Story coming to the Yankees for potentially Gleyber Torres. I don't know. But before we get into that, everyone be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications. We're going live before and after every Yankees game this season, so stay tuned for that. They're always fun. But listen, Trevor Story is arguably the best shortstop in Major League Baseball, right?
Sure, we can agree on that.
Sure. He is a free agent at the end of the season. The Rockies clearly aren't going to be too competitive in the American League West. Probably not even going to be fighting for a wild card spot this season. So, I mean, the bold assumption here is that he's going to be available at the trade deadline. I'm not too sure who's going to be in the mix for him. But, I mean, if you look at the Yankee shortstop situation right now, they have Gleyber Torres there. And clearly, he's not really proving himself as being like a solid defensive option at shortstop. And his bat has kind of suffered from being there as well. So that has kind of led like some people to wondering where the Yankees go from here. Do they wait until the offseason and just sign one of these free agent shortstops when it gets to that point? Do they trade for a shortstop at this trade deadline? Or do they give Gleyber another shot? But today I really want to focus on Trevor Story. What are the odds that the Yankees trade for Trevor Story at this year's deadline?
Hopefully zero. I mean, the only way I could see it happening is like the offense continues to really, really struggle, like to the point where, Luke Voit comes back and it makes almost no impact. And we're still talking about how terrible this offense is, not just runners in scoring position, just overall, like, being threatened to being shut out, potential no hitters against us, like just looking lifeless. I could see them pulling together a trade for a rental bat at the deadline. But I find it really hard to envision a scenario where the Yankees just completely give up on the Gleyber Torres shortstop experiment this season, especially when they know that all those shortstops are going to be available just for money rather than having to give away talent for let's just get to secure one of them. So
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see it happening. I don't think that it's a logical thing for them to do. I don't think Gleyber should be available for trade yet. I don't think that like shortstop is an open position for us yet. But anything's possible.
Yeah, I mean, like that's kind of the key. You mentioned like if Luke Voit returns and the Yankees offense is still struggling, and if Gleyber Torres is astronomically bad at shortstop, now like he would have to be really bad in order for them to like consider going after a shortstop at the deadline. But let's say hypothetically, right? It's July 30th. Gleyber Torres is batting like 220 with like 7 home runs. His defense is terrible at shortstop, and the Rockies give the Yankees a call. They say, you know what? Like we'll give you Trevor Story for Gleyber Torres 1-for-1. Are you doing it?
Absolutely not. That doesn't because okay, the Yankees. If Gleyber Torres struggles that bad, the Yankees might give up on Gleyber Torres, the shortstop, but they're not going to give up on Gleyber Torres, the player. So even if they're looking to bring in Trevor Story to play shortstop for the remainder of the season, they feel like he's the final piece. They feel like if we have a lockdown shortstop who's a great defender, also a plus bat, a great bat, then it's possible that they could put together a trade, like I said. But there's no way that you give up the rest of your years of control for Gleyber, who you still believe can be a superstar in this league, whether you believe it to be at shortstop or not. You've seen the potential for him to be a superstar. We all agree second base is his better position. There was that year in 2018 or 2019 where we were saying it's literally him and Jose Altuve that we think are the best second baseman in the league. Obviously, DJ, we were kind of not looking at just like as a second baseman. He's kind of like we can plug in anywhere. But we were looking at Altuve and Gleyber Torres as the best second baseman in baseball. And I really do think that trading him away for what essentially would be a rental, you don't know I mean, it's possible that you could agree to an extension with Trevor Story, but we can't assume that yet. And on top of that, he's going to be available in like 3 months after that. So why waste Gleyber Torres' prime? Mind you, Gleyber Torres is 24 years old. 24. Why waste
How old?
a guy like that? 24. And I
There
think
you go.
just turned 24 in like October or something like that. I don't see why you would waste that, cash in that chip if you're going to trade him, that's fine. I'm not saying don't ever like Gleyber has to be untouchable. I'm not saying that at all.
Yeah,
But you have a guy like, let's say, Corbin Burns in Milwaukee, or Brandon Woodruff also in Milwaukee. You have a guy like Luis Castillo. You have a guy like Kyle Hendricks that is far more valuable to you if you want to cash in that Gleyber chip, and
yeah.
and you feel comfortable going in a different direction at shortstop.
It's fair to think that. My only thing is, I bring up the Gleyber Torres for Trevor Story example just because I can't see the Rockies giving up Story without getting Gleyber in return, right? I mean, I can't see a deal being made for like a Schmidt or a Voit. I just don't see it happening. But
Well,
that's kind of why.
they're not going to get a better deal for him.
Exactly.
He's going to be a look at what happened with Manny Machado.
No,
The
exactly.
Yankees didn't trade Gleyber for Machado at the trade deadline that one, or I think it was in the offseason that one year, and the Orioles thought that they were going to get a better deal for him. I was like, oh, we just hang on to him a little longer. He's going to have a solid beginning to that season, and then next thing you know, they're trading him for Yasniel Diaz and two guys we've never heard of anymore. So. Listen, if the Rockies want to make the mistake, that's fine, but the Yankees can't just overpay and bid against themselves.
It's fair enough. But I do want to bring up to you, like, do you know who Jim Bowden is? Obviously.
I do.
Okay, so he had a trade proposal for the Yankees and Rockies that he thought would work. Personally, I don't think this gets the deal done, but I'll bring it up to you. He mentioned the Yankees getting Trevor Story, Herman Marquez, and Daniel Bard in exchange for Devi Garcia, Loizaga, Urshela, and Andujar. Now, if I'm the Yankees, I'm making this trade 10 times out of 10. But I don't see the Rockies accepting that whatsoever.
I don't. I think that might be if that was just a trade for a Story. I could maybe see that.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know about Marquez just because he's actually a really talented arm, and I think you'd have to probably include Davey and like one more blue chip prospect.
Mhm.
Um, I don't even know if we really have like another top of the line guy like Schmidt. You would assume Schmidt to be that guy, but I
And I would
think they
assume
would.
Dominguez is off the table too. So
Right, yeah, and I don't think you'd include Dominguez for that deal, but I think it'd be tough to get both Story and Marquez, let alone Daniel Bard. I think Daniel Bard would kind of just be like a throw-in in this deal, even though he's come back and he's still throwing hard. But
yeah.
um, yeah, that might be a little tough. But I don't think that package is that far off for Story. I don't even think that the Yankees are looking to trade Gio Urshela. Like I think he's our third baseman moving forward. I think they're going to probably do like a team friendly ish contract with him.
Hmm.
Maybe like a 4 year, 65, $70 million, maybe a little bit more for him once his arbitration comes up. Like, I don't really see them moving on from him, even if it's to bring in a Trevor Story. Like, I think if Trevor Story is coming in or Corey Seager comes in, Gleyber Torres is either at second or he's gone. So it's tough to gauge kind of what the package
Yeah.
would be.
I mean, because look, like we've obviously seen a lot of people on social media being like trade Glaber, trade Glaber, trade Glaber. But I think what the Yankees have to do in this situation is like look long term. And I think long term, the safer route is let Glaber continue the season, the entire 2021 season at short, reevaluate at the end, and then kind of recognize like whether or not you want to move on to the shortstop position. And if you realize you do, you have a bunch of shortstops on the free agent market to go to. Trevor Story is going to be available most likely. And you could trade Glaber for like a top tier starting pitcher, like you mentioned, like a Brandon Woodruff or a Corbin Burns or Luis Castillo, something down that alley. And if you don't want to trade Glaber, then you could work around some other things. Maybe you trade Voit, maybe you trade Gio. So I think the offseason is something that the Yankees should look forward to as far as like correcting that shortstop situation, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I don't
I
think
think they
this
have
year's
a lot
trade
of.
deadline is it.
No, yeah, I agree, and I think it's very similar to what we had with the Machado situation. I think the Yankees wanted to improve third base, defensively, the production there. I think Machado was the obvious solution there,
Hmm.
but they didn't want to sacrifice their future just to get what at the time was just a half a season for Machado, and he
Hmm.
obviously wanted to experience free agency. He was with the Dodgers. That was a great situation. A lot of people thought he was going to re-sign there, and I'm sure if he would have went to the Yankees, it would have probably been a similar situation where people thought, he's where we all envision him to be. Why would he not resign? But I think he was
Yeah.
always a guy that wanted to experience free agency. Trevor Story might be the same way. You don't want to throw away your future, throw away a guy like Davy Garcia, throw away a guy like Gleyber Torres, just because you hope that you can get. He's the final piece to your World Series quest this year. I don't know if he makes that pushes the envelope that much more over Gleyber this year.
Yeah, I'll finish things off today by saying this regarding the situation. Like I said, the Yankees need to give Gleyber Torres the rest of the 2021 season and then reevaluate. But I do want to say if Gleyber continues struggling at shortstop this season and into the postseason, the worst thing that the Yankees could possibly do, and it's the most realistic possibility, is go with Gleyber Torres still at shortstop moving forward. Despite the below average defense, despite the same bat not being there out of him, it would be the worst possible decision to stick with him there. But I guess we're going to have to see how the rest of the season continues. But yeah, it's going to wrap things up for us today. Bottom line here, do we see Gleyber Torres for Trevor Story happening at the trade deadline? No. Is it a possibility? Anything's possible, I guess. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. Everyone, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications. Like I always say, we go live before and after every Yankees game this season, so come hang out with us. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay safe. Peace.